Today on the Cost of Caring podcast, we're talking with Kameron Browning, who takes care of her dad, Jim, who lives with Alzheimer's disease. Well, then, yeah, maybe you can just start by telling us about you and your caregiving journey so far, and who you're caring for, and
Sure.
just sort of paint a picture of Cameron.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my name is Cameron. I am 37 years old. I have four children. They range from ages 1 to 15. I am a single mom, and I started caring full time for my dad about 6 months ago. I have been his sole caregiver for, oh gosh, probably 6 years now, but just recently turned into a full-time gig. And my dad is the one I care for. His name is James. He goes by Jim, and he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. He also has suffered several TIAs, which are mini strokes. And so he does have vascular dementia also. And he struggles with sundowners and aphasia. So, sundowners, really quickly, is just added confusion at a certain time of the day. And then the aphasia is basically just confused language, not being able to find words, using the wrong words for things. It's all about the language.
Yeah, wow. It sounds like, between four kids and your dad, you just have like a little bit on your plate.
Yeah, just a little.
And you mentioned that recently he's moved in with you and it's become, full time, but you were still his primary caregiver before that. I'm curious to know sort of what's the most challenging part, but also what's changed since him
Yeah.
moving in with you, and how's that changed your
Yeah.
role in your relationship?
Yeah. So before he moved in with me 6 months ago, I was over there twice a day, and it would range from, 2 hours to sometimes 5 to 6 hours, just depending on what I needed to get done over there physically for the house. And then if it was a shower day, if depending on his level of confusion. So navigating that with four kids. And at that time I was pregnant. So I actually only had three kids, and then I was dealing with the pregnancy. But that was interesting, trying to navigate, going back and forth, balance the kids, and all of that. And then whenever he moved in with us, um, it I I did not I didn't I did not understand the monstrosity of a job and life change that I was about to, like, take on. I mean, I thought I was prepared for it, honestly. Like, I mean, yeah, we decided to do it kind of like spur of the moment, because that's kind of like how Alzheimer's works and dementia in general. You just have to roll with the punches. And so we were rolling with a big punch, and we had to make a decision, and it had to happen like that. And so that's what we did. And I was like, yeah, I got this. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, totally. Like, come on, dad. You're just so, um, I was not as prepared as I would have liked to have been, for sure. Um, the role reversal has been incredible.
Mhm.
Um, I can honestly say that, like, when he moved in with me is really when, like, he stopped being my dad and more so like another child that I take care of.
Sure.
And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way whatsoever, but you know what I mean. And so, yeah, I added another kid to the bunch, really. So, that's been interesting, and also just kind of like mourning the relationship that I did, once have with him,
Sure.
has been, difficult as well.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, that role reversal is confusing. It's confusing to start parenting your parent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something else.
Um, is there something you said you thought you were prepared
Yeah.
and turns out you were not.
Yeah.
What, if anything, would have prepared you more for that experience?
Number 1, like, and this is something that I have heard from more people than I would like to admit over these past 6 months, especially, since I've been starting to connect with more caregivers. Um, they like, nobody tells you what to do. Nobody tells you how to handle situations. Nobody tells you that you should get plugged in this, and this.
Mhm.
You have to figure this stuff out on your own. The right person has to come along and give you the resources, or the right person, you have to hear about it in the elevator from a random stranger. Like, the doctors don't guide you. Maybe if you have a good one, but I'll tell you that the general consensus is that they don't guide you. They give you a diagnosis, they'll set you up with a medical plan as far as like, your prescriptions and stuff. But no, after that, it's like you're on your own.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's wild. There's no blueprint. And I think you mentioned before we got on this in this conversation, you've been doing this full time for, 6 months now. Of course, it's been longer than that, but feeling like you don't have the guidance or what to do,
Yeah.
where have you found,
So,
valuable resources
yeah.
or people, et cetera?
Yeah, so thankfully, I will say that I have a background in dementia care.
Mhm.
So that has been a huge asset for me. I am so grateful. So my I worked at a nursing home in an Alzheimer's unit before I had kids, and I did
Mhm.
that for a few years, and so I did have experience. And then also my dad's dad had Alzheimer's, and then my mom's mom had dementia. And
Mhm.
so I've been around it a lot, and I have just picked it up, that way. Like, as far as how to care for them, how to speak with them,
Sure.
how to treat them, what to expect, stuff like that. But only for the disease. Like, caregiving is just so much bigger than just like caring for the person.
Mhm.
And I think that that's like what people don't really understand. Caregiving is like this all-encompassing, you literally, like, put your life on hold. It
Mhm.
becomes a completely different life. And, so as far as, like, resources though, honestly, other caregivers,
Yeah.
people who have been there before me have been my absolute biggest, godsend and lifesaver. Like, um and I've found most of them through TikTok, to be
Yeah.
honest with you. Um, yeah, like, having a platform on there that came out of nowhere, has been, like, a huge blessing. And so I have found a lot of things through that. I think that's the reason I reached out to my local, agency for aging.
Mhm.
Um, that is how he got hours at the senior, day center so that I could get some respite.
Mm. Mhm.
That, so everything is kind of stemmed from people that have gone before me and have, and I kind of like am trying to, it's like there needs to be some cohesive, like, place. Like, here are all of the steps. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Here, I mean, that's so needed. And our generation is like, there are more people with this disease right now,
Mhm.
and it's just like booming. It's kind of crazy. And I have my own thoughts about why that is, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. Like, it's so interesting the amount of community that's on, Instagram and TikTok, and people finding their people or people that have, shared experiences there.
Mhm.
And I also think, I don't know if we can be encouraged by this, but caregiving and the care economy is like a hot topic in the news right now. And I do think there's hopefully movement towards policy change and greater resources and greater money going into these things so that what you've just said hopefully
Yes.
can exist,
Yeah,
or we can move in that direction because
yeah,
you're right. You're just sort of like building the plane as you fly it and flying by the seat of your pants, trying to
yeah.
figure out, how to care for, in your
Mhm.
instance, someone with Alzheimer's, but there's, so many other scenarios too.
Yeah, yeah.
You talked a little bit about your dad's, medical team,
Mhm.
and being useful for a medical plan, but obviously that's not comprehensive. Can you talk a little bit about like who else is part of the care team? Who else do you have support from? Like just sort of what does the whole ecosystem of caring for
Look
your dad
like
look like? Yeah.
sure. So as far as his medical team, like that side of it, he only sees like a primary care physician. He does not see a neurologist anymore.
Hmm.
He did at one point, but at this point in the disease, there's really no reason for it. And I mean, if there ever did come a reason, we would definitely go, but at this point, it's we know what to expect. Um, so his primary care doctor, and then he sees someone for to manage his medication because he is seen through the VA. We go to the VA. He's a veteran, and
Hmm.
so he is seen by like their behavioral health people for his medication to manage the sundowning and his mood and sleep and stuff like that. Um, and then as far as his personal care team, I'm obviously like the sole person, but
Yep.
um my sister, I've got a couple of siblings. My sister does help when she can. My mom is also an incredible help. I definitely would include her as a part of my dad's care team. They're divorced, but and he doesn't recognize her
Hmm.
as his ex-wife, so it's not like awkward, like, you know.
Sure.
And they had a good relationship anyways when he did remember her. So she's just kind of jumped right in and helps. And then I have an aide that comes to the house for 9 hours a week.
Hmm.
She's here twice a week for 4.5 hours. She's actually here right now, so that's the
Nice.
reason I'm able to have some quiet time. And that he's awarded that through the VA. Um,
Hmm.
so I, thank goodness, don't have to pay for that. And that is the reason we only have 9 hours a week is because it's free. He earned that for serving his country, and like
Hmm.
that's what we get. And he can't afford any more. That's yeah. And that's kind of sad.
Yeah.
That's kind of sad, really, if you think about it. He served our country for 3 years, and he may have, who knows why Alzheimer's is a thing, and who knows really why it affects who it affects, because there are so many factors. But that could have been a big reason why he has Alzheimer's. I don't know. Um, the war in general. And he gets 9 hours a week. I just
Yeah.
think that there's something broken with our system.
I was going to say thank you for spending. I know, you get these 9 hours a week of
Oh, yeah, no,
care, and
most
thank you for
definitely.
spending, one of them
Yes.
with us. Like this is so
Yeah.
important to share. But I also know how precious your time is.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I do want to switch gears a little bit into
Yeah.
talking about money, which can be a
Yes.
bit taboo, or just sort of the financial impact of caregiving.
Yes.
You mentioned there's an aide that comes 9 hours a week through the VA. Maybe first you can just talk a bit more about like how you discovered, VA
Yeah.
benefits here, how you got connected with this
Yeah.
particular program. Just
Yeah.
a bit more about that. Yeah.
For sure. So my dad is a veteran, and but he always he always had private healthcare. Like, he always just went to, like, and I don't know why that was. I don't know what made him go that route.
Mhm.
I wasn't a part of that decision, years and years ago before he was diagnosed, but he had never even been like established at the VA. And I was getting frustrated with the private doctor. And I was like, we were going to have to go to, here, there, and everywhere. And at the VA, it's like all right there. You can just do everything right there. And I'm like, okay, also, like, he's earned this care that they can provide him. And so, like, let's utilize it. And at that point, I was a virgin in the VA world, had no idea what to
Mhm.
expect. But now that I'm there and like we have been established, I would say that like it has been less than stellar. um, there are like a million people that will tell you different things.
Mhm.
We don't get the same answer from like anybody. We feel like a number there and not a patient. Um, but that is how we were at I had to seek it out, the care. The hours I requested for a social worker to meet with us during one of his appointments. And I was like, listen, I need to know, because as someone who had gone before me told me to ask, they were like, you need to talk to a social worker. You need to ask these questions. And so that's what I did. And at that point, she rated him and he was rated to get like 9 hours.
Mhm.
So they rate them like, depending on their needs and abilities, and then also how they're connected to the VA. So
Mhm.
if they are, if their injury or illness is related to their service.
Right.
So that's, kind of how they are rated. So how he was rated, he got 9 hours a week.
Is there potential for that to change?
I'm fighting for there to be I met with a veteran, it's like a advocate basically,
Mhm.
there at the VA. I met with them and was like, listen, here's our situation. What can we do to get him more service connected? Is there anything that we can do? And we did do like a hearing test because he does have connections with the service. And
Mhm.
he did I think that we're waiting on the results for that. So we had to go, to an audiologist and all of that. And but as far as like getting more help, like that is our only ticket, unfortunately.
Mhm. Yeah.
Is And so, like, he won't ever get really, like, an exponentially, like, more help from the VA.
Sure.
Um, but, they do provide, like, any prosthetics he would need, and that does, like, include, you know, grab bars for the bathroom.
Mhm.
Um, it includes, a walker, stuff like that. The VA is really good. And if he would need hearing aids, and then they do like vision and stuff like that. So they are pretty all encompassing. Um, I got so off track there though. What was the original
No,
question?
that's great. I was just curious about sort of how this evolves over time. Um, if more care comes with age or just what else is
Yeah.
sort of included there.
Yeah, it's basically just like, I mean, no, they won't. I mean, yeah, I think that if they provide, like, if I were to want to put him in a home,
Mhm.
they provide help.
Right.
I'm not looking at that as an option right now. So I haven't even like looked into the ins and outs of that. But yeah, the amount of help that you get is based on like your service connection.
Mhm.
So
You mentioned that someone who had come before you had suggested talking to social worker at the VA and gave you sort of a list of questions to ask. Do you remember some of those initial questions that you asked to get this sort of care conversation started?
Um, it was basically like, I explained my situation and said, "Listen, like, I am the only one that's advocating for my dad. I need," and the VA was good about, they were like, "Well, here's a list of, like, things that," and so they did give me, like, I was just the social worker was, like, my first, like, you know, person that I reached out to really. And
Hmm.
so it was just like, help me advocate for my dad." Um, and so that's kind of like what got the ball rolling there. I'm trying to think. There was something else I wanted to say. I'm so sorry. My brain just
No, you're
like
good.
went out. Huh. I totally lost it. I'm sorry.
That's right. It'll come back or it won't. We'll see.
Yeah.
I guess bigger picture, what are some of the ways that caregiving has impacted, your spending and saving and, thoughts of the future?
Yeah. So, with a father that, was living paycheck to paycheck anyway, had
Hmm.
no, savings really to speak of, and, me being a single mom, it has really, like, opened my eyes more to, like, just all the what ifs.
Yeah,
And so, and there's a lot that's impacted in my life by caregiving that I was not, planning for. Lots of more trips in my car. That's a big one. Is
sure.
like, it's just like everything, it's just everything. We had to move to a bigger house. So the bigger house means, more money each month. It's just
Hmm.
like, and I didn't get I don't start making more money just because the need is there, but we had
Right.
to, so anyway, uh, the oh, there's so many thoughts. They're like running through my head.
Hmm.
I'm trying to focus on just one. So, um, I'm so sorry.
No, don't apologize.
Um,
It's a lot.
it is a lot. Um, Oh, ask me just one question. Let's try that. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm having a hard time, like, focusing right now. My
of
head is
course.
everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned, this is sort of specific, but you mentioned like gas, like taking more trips in the car and managing, just one expense like gas. Have you found um like tips or tricks around managing that or resources?
Honestly, like, it's just been so, like, figure everything out as you go, and I feel like I have been, like, blessed. I think that honestly, like, people have, like, come together to help, and I I don't know, like, that's the only way I've been able to, like, manage and juggle all the plates is having a community.
Hmm.
Um, you asked earlier about, like, the care team that was involved, like, I couldn't do any of this without, like, my mom. My mom is the constant, like, the amount of and how it affects her.
Yeah.
She's now spending more gas money because she's in the car, helping me take my kids from places, here and there when I can't because I don't have someone to sit with my dad. And my dad being in the car half of the day irritates him. It's not conducive to, a good day for him.
Hmm.
So, um, anyway, it's just, it, tips and tricks, have less kids. I don't know. Um, Definitely include that, please. That's the best tip I have. No. Um, it's just I mean, I think it's just the economy too. It's just like,
Yeah.
we can't really like there are community resources. I would say, like, don't be too proud also to like reach
Mm-hmm.
out for the resources and the help. Like, that's what it's there for. I think there's a lot of pride when it comes to the older generation, especially like, coming out of those depression years and, stuff like that. Like they were, so I think that there's a lot of pride issues and asking for help, but the resources are there, the helps are there, food banks are
Mm-hmm.
there. I will be the first to admit that I have used, it's hard. I'm going
Mm-hmm.
from month to month when you're paying twice as much in, housing expenses than you're used to. And all of a sudden having to, it's just, there's just so many financial, um, and art. And I will say that, like, I don't feel like I was ever prepared in high school,
Mm-hmm.
even going back, to be financially responsible. I think that that's something that I have had to completely figure out on my own. And that's a whole nother issue.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was gonna ask, and I think what you've just said is true for, so many people. We don't learn, like, we don't get taught in school, like, about our taxes or about
Yeah,
how to, like, manage our
right.
finances,
Oh
like,
my
these are, like, life
gosh.
skills that,
Yeah.
um and I recognize as I ask this question that you are not a finance expert. You're curious to know a bit about in managing money or financial assistance. Like, what systems are working well for you and which aren't, and it doesn't have to be fancy, just like
Yeah.
how are you managing it?
Well, before my dad moved in with me, I was like assigned his fiduciary. So like
Mhm.
I am I'm literally responsible for every part of him. It's kind of
Yeah.
crazy. But like automatic things, I am so thankful that he had like all the automatic payments set up. I mean,
Mhm.
I got, and anything like, I mean, I had a calendar. Just it was a lot of like mentally taxing, like making sure that, you know, managing two, households is just,
Yeah.
it's kind of crazy. But thankfully, like he lived in an apartment. He didn't have any debt, so to speak.
Mhm.
He had paid off his car. He already had like all of his automatic things in place. So it was like me just maintaining. So thankfully, that wasn't too big of an issue. It's just like a lot of paperwork. Now that he's gotten to a certain age, it's like it's just the government wants to, it's just
Yeah.
so much paperwork and filing systems, have to be in place. And as I'm looking at my very unorganized filing cabinet over there, um but yeah, I mean, uh, automatic bill pay, I'm so thankful for. Everything is just automatic, and because he gets paid the same time every month from,
Right.
it's like everything is just, there's no like surprises as far as that is concerned. Now,
Sure.
things come up and it's like, oh, well, where's the extra for that? So, you know, the I'm thankful that nothing huge has come up so far, but yeah, it's it's a lot. I will say that, like, I have probably paid my personal bills late more in the past 6 months than I ever have in my entire life, just because like, it's I don't have my bills on auto pay because I'm like a nervous wreck. My finances ebb and flow more than my
Sure.
dad's do.
Right.
So, um, so I like because of the mental load, of just having an extra person in the house and all of, having to worry about, his doctor's appointments, his blood sugar, his blood pressure. Is he, going to the bathroom in the right spot? Oh, is today shower day? Does he need his medication? There's just so much that I have let so much fall on, on my part, like, I need someone to take care of me. Like,
Yeah.
I need
Yeah.
live-in help for myself. I'll take care of my dad. Who takes care of me?
Yeah. Yeah. I
So,
mean, it's wild. You mentioned, thank you for sharing all of
yeah.
that. Like it's so many moving pieces.
Yeah. Yes.
Uh, yeah, it sounds like a lot, and I know how much it is.
It is.
You mentioned becoming his fiduciary before
Mhm.
before he moved in. Can you tell us a little bit just about that process and
Yeah.
if you would do anything differently?
Yeah, I knew all along that it was gonna be me that cared for him in the end of his life. My siblings and I had this conversation years ago, right after he was diagnosed. Um, and so knowing that I was going to be caring for him full time, I would have fought for someone else to be his fiduciary, probably. Um, I will say now, like, it is nice that I have control over everything because I can see all of the moving pieces,
Sure. Yeah.
and so it's kind of like, in a way it's more stressful, but in like I kind of like to have that control too. So, but yeah, I would have asked for more assistance like way long ago. Like, you know, let's delegate. I should have delegated better. Um it but it I think I felt like this, like, huge responsibility come over me, and I was really nervous because it was like, "Oh, government, I have to, like, be, I'm now answering to this person who, they're gonna hold me accountable for all this and blah, blah, blah." Yes, they do hold you accountable, 100%, they do, and they make sure that you're doing the right thing with your loved one's money. However, it's not as scary as, yes, it's a responsibility, but it's not as scary as I thought it would be. It's just like something you have to learn. And I think that's
Hmm.
with everything. It's like it is scary until you jump the hurdle and then you figure out how to do it better each time and it just gets less scary and less scary. And I mean, I was talking to a friend this morning who is a caregiver for his mom,
Hmm.
and, he was like, "I'm just waiting, like, how long is it gonna take until I have a mental breakdown?" And my response to him was like, "Oh, like, you haven't had a mental breakdown yet? Oh, I've had 10." Like, and
Right.
each one you get over better, like,
Sure.
and I think that's with everything in life, like, you know, and so, yeah, we're just learning as we go. We're just jumping over hurdles and figuring out how to do it better each time.
Yeah, I think it can be hard to, like you just mentioned, if you could go back, you might delegate more. But I think it's also like as you're learning all of these bits
Yeah,
as you go. And then it seems like harder somehow to like share that because you're like, I just have all this information and
right.
it feels like some sense of control. So I'm
Yes.
just gonna hold on to all of it
Yeah.
before I
Yeah.
divvy it up
Right, and
among siblings or whomever.
it's a
Yeah.
huge task to explain when, I mean, and to teach someone when it's like,
It's just easier
ugh,
for me to do it. Yeah.
yeah, it is, it is, honestly, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure, and I
If
hate that I have that mentality, like, I really don't like it, I think it's a very toxic mentality to have, and especially being a caregiver, like, I have told so many people, "Do not be shy about asking for help." But I am the most shy about asking for help. It's so much easier said than done.
Yeah. I guess I mean looking back then, if the advice or the wisdom that you might impart to other caregivers is like, don't be afraid to ask for help. If you turn that around on yourself and you just mentioned if you could go back, you might delegate differently between, siblings or people that are sort of in your space and supporting, what might that have looked like, looking backwards?
Um, I mean, yeah, I think I would've I I probably would have, you know, hmm, hmm. I take such pride in what I'm doing right now, and not in a boastful way, in a "he's my dad and he deserves the very best" kind of way.
Hmm.
And so, honestly, this is gonna be so contradictory, but, I mean, yeah, it would have been nice to have less of a load, but I don't know if I would have done anything differently.
Hmm.
Because also, like, and I'm gonna get a little teary-eyed, like,
Yeah.
I yeah, all of the times that I had to go to my dad's 5,000,000 times a day because he couldn't figure out the remote, it was so taxing, and it was
Yeah.
really annoying. But, like, I am so grateful for the time that allotted me with him and the relationship that it's grown from that. And even though he doesn't know who I am most days, he
Hmm.
loves me. I know that and I feel that, and, like, he knows that I'm his person. And that wouldn't have come any other way, except for how it happened. And so, like, um, I think that you have to just, like, feel it in your gut that you are meant to be a caregiver and, like, embrace it. I think that that would be, like, my biggest advice for people is, like, if you're going to be a caregiver, you have to, like, kind of succumb to the idea that it's all encompassing.
Hmm.
It's and you have to just embrace it because I fought it for a little bit. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm not gonna have a life. This is gonna suck every bit," you know? Yeah, my life is so different now, but it's still a very full life, and I it's different. It looks very different than it did 6 months ago, a
Hmm.
year ago, but, it's it's a good different. It's like it's full, and
Yeah.
my dad just told me yesterday he feels at home here. He loves it here. Like,
I
he does.
did. I saw your TikTok.
Yes,
That was
I
very
mean, oh
special.
my gosh, I was, like, trying
Yeah.
to hold back, and I wish I would have recorded sooner because he, like, said something super sweet right before that, and I'm like,
Mm.
"Dang it, okay, what was that again?"
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
And
that's so special what you've just shared. Like, we've just talked about all the challenges of caregiving, and for so many people, it's rewarding in the way that you just said, and what a special relationship you have with your dad now that, um, has only come because of the choices you've made,
right.
whether you knew you were making them or not.
Yeah. Yeah, and I hate the disease, but yeah, like, I honestly, like, if it wasn't for the disease, I don't know that my dad and I would be as close as we are right now because
Right.
I was a busy person. This has really forced me to slow down and really take in, like, all of life because,
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, we I can say strongly that we would not have the relationship that we do now. We wouldn't. I just know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a blessing and a curse for sure.
Yeah. We like to ask everyone, and you just shared a little bit, what's your number one tip for caregivers, financial or otherwise? But, you just mentioned you feel really called to be caring for your dad, and, this is rewarding for you, and you've, sort of accepted that this is how life is now. I guess, and maybe this is hard to speak to because this is not your case, but for people that maybe don't have the background that you do, or don't feel that same calling, but end up in a caregiving position, do you have any thoughts or wisdom that you
Yeah.
can share?
Yeah, a lot of people ask me that. They're like, they comment on my patience with my
Mhm.
dad, and, like, the tenderness that I show towards him, and, a lot of people do ask me, like, "How do you do that?" Or, like, say that they admire it, and I'm humbled by that because I feel like, I don't I'm like, "I don't know, I'm not I see all of the moments. So I will say that, like, first of all, give yourself grace
Mhm.
because we all share like our what is it? The highlight reel of our life, right?
Sure.
And even though I do try to be as real as possible, there are moments that I'm not going to share on social media.
Sure.
Like, there's that. But um I would like to say that, like, most of our moments are pretty true to what our life looks like most of the time. And I would say my biggest tip, if I could just, like, give an all encompassing, is uh, you have to be able to give grace and receive grace. And it's hard when the person that you're caring for has a neurological disorder and they literally are losing brain cells and neuropathways are
Mhm.
dying, brain cells are dying. So you're not always going to receive grace from that person. So
Sure.
you have to give yourself the grace, but you have to give the grace to them too and realize that I honestly I had to just like mourn my dad. I had
Yeah.
to really like put myself he's not my dad anymore. I don't go to him for advice. I don't go to him for comfort. He's my patient. Like and I don't want that to sound cold, like, he's still my dad, I'm the biggest daddy's girl there is, but, I have really switched the role. I have really accepted him as the one I'm responsible for. I
Mhm.
think that I think that just knowing that you are responsible for that person is, like, a huge weight, and if truly, like, you can't feel that, then there is no shame in asking someone else to do it. Not everybody is meant to be a caregiver. And I understand that some people are thrown into it and,
Sure.
they're like, this is the last place I want to be. Um, but yeah, I would just say lots of grace and forgiveness. And we're all human. And gosh, yeah, lots of grace.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, I think that's very important.
It's so simple, but it's just like, we're all human. We have to just no one's perfect. Nobody's perfect. We're not gonna do it right the first time. We're gonna do it right as we learn. We're gonna know better and we're gonna do better. That's just it.
Yep, we're all doing the best with what we got.
That's right.
Um,
Yeah.
Thank you for, the content you're putting out and sharing your story because I think that helps other people see, yes, you get compliments about how patient you are and the tenderness you show and gentleness you show towards your dad. But like you said, you're sharing as much as it's healthy for you, all of it, the
Yeah.
whole story. And I think that's really
Yeah.
helpful for people to see that like
Yeah.
it's hard
Yeah.
and it's rewarding. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I want people to see all of it because I wasn't prepared for it, and if I can help someone else I mean, so many people are like, "I've seen the signs in my dad. Thank you for showing me what my future could possibly look like." Like, it helps me prepare. So, if I had someone coming before me, if I
Hmm.
had someone doing this, what I'm doing for me, maybe I would have a better handle on some things. Maybe I would've, you know maybe things would look a little different. I don't know.
Sure. Learning curve might be faster, or at
Yeah.
least you feel, seen and supported by other
Yeah.
people that are experiencing the same thing.
Right.
If people want to continue to follow along your and your
Yeah.
family's, story, where can they find you online?
So yeah, we're on TikTok and my handle is at Cameron Sarah, KameronSarah. And then I'm on Instagram. It's not quite as big, but it is Jim Cam Fam at Jim Cam Fam. So yeah,
Yeah, that's awesome. We'll make sure to include that in, the links
awesome.
and bios and wherever they end up
Yeah.
on the screen. But, thank you so much for taking time to
Yeah.
share like really openly about, what's been hard in general, but also financially in caregiving because
Yeah.
it's like you said, all encompassing. So we,
Yes.
really appreciate it. And
Yeah.
like you're doing on your channels, we're hoping to do the same on ours, is give people just more
Yeah.
tools and resources to
Yeah, thank you
to
so yeah, I think that that's gonna be such a good
care.
blessing. Oh my gosh, it's gonna be such a blessing. I love it. Thank you so much for having me, Katie.